Welcome to the DRGN SLYR Podcast by Frontier Credit Union. I am Steven, your host. With me, as always, is Bailey. And today's guest, Jessica Mortensen from Karrie Annes. Welcome.
I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you for being
so
here.
Fun.
Okay, so the first time I ever went to Karrie Annes, and it was not the last, but the first time is when I first started at the credit union. We did an event at the Rexburg branch.
Yeah.
And you guys were like across the parking lot
Yes.
from us. And all of the people who came to our event went and like sat in your space. And I was like, oh no, they're going to be so mad.
Well, we did partner with them for it.
Oh, good. Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad Bailey was there to take care of that. Yeah. I was not aware.
So we probably have talked before.
We
and
totally
didn't. I love it.
Yeah. Well, and I think it ended up being good because all the people who came to our event then walked over and got something from you guys.
Absolutely.
yeah.
I'm good with those kind of partnerships.
And so I asked Bailey, I was like, is that place any good? And she was like, oh, it's awesome. You got to go over there. And so I went over, and I don't remember the name of the gal that was working there at the time, but she was like, what do you want? And I was like, I don't know, just surprise me, right? And it was like the most delicious, like frozen treat I've had in a long, long time.
It was
so
actually
good.
probably our Dragon Slayer,
Oh,
which is kind of ironic that we're here, but we have a secret menu item, the Dragon Slayer.
you do?
And it is our most popular combination. So it probably was that.
Describe the Dragon Slayer for
It
me.
has pina colada on top, vanilla custard in the middle,
Yep.
and tiger's blood on the bottom.
I think that's exactly what I had. Yeah.
It's amazing. I love it.
Okay, so why a secret menu?
You know, there is something, you think of other brands that have these secret menu items, and not everyone knows about them, but it's something that you kind of just educate your customer on as they come. And for some reason, it makes them feel important to know something that not everyone else knows.
I discovered a secret menu item. I forget where now.
It's probably
talking-
Jamba Juice.
Oh, Jamba.
Oh,
Or
Jamba.
In-N-Out, yeah.
In
that's
and out,
another
and
one.
In and Out is like really kind of what I thought about
Yeah.
when we first created this secret menu item
Yeah.
because, you know, I remember as a kid it was like animal style. You can get it animal style, and I'm like, what? What does that even mean? It does not on the menu.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you go and you order that, and you're like, I know what animal
Part of a
style
special
is.
club.
Yes.
It just ticked me off because I was like, why didn't anybody? I didn't know. I could have been
Why was
ordering
I
it
not
this
in
way
the
for
club?
years, and I did not. Nobody told me.
Yeah.
So how does somebody find out about the Dragon Slayer?
You know,
How's
a lot
that
of times our employees, they're trained on our special menu items. So if a customer orders that and they'll hand it out and they'll say, "Oh, you ordered the Dragon Slayer," they'll just kind of mention that intermittently.
Oh, so like other
Yeah.
people are like, wait, what did they say?
Yes, exactly.
Nice.
You know what could be fun is you could have them be like, you just got the Dragon Slayer. Don't tell anybody.
Don't keep that a secret.
Yeah, we don't do this for everybody.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
You say that loud enough, I think people get interested.
Yeah, well, and then when they go up to order and customers behind them are in line and they hear them say, the next time they go, they say, I want the Dragon Slayer. And the person behind them like, you want the what?
Yeah.
And what is that?
I love it.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
It's fun.
Okay, so for people who don't know, tell us what is Karrie Annes? What do you guys do?
Okay, well, we sell Italian ice and frozen custard. And if you think about Italian ice, I mean, there's a lot of it. Sometimes it's referred to as water ice on
It's
the
not
East
quite as nice sounding.
Right, it
Yeah.
isn't. It isn't. There's something about Italian
Sure.
that makes you feel like sophisticated.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of water ice, Italian ice companies on the East Coast. It's not something that is really as popular on the Western
Yeah.
U.S.
Yeah.
Like you don't find a lot of Italian ice and frozen custard companies. And so I think most people are familiar with snow cones. And it's similar to a snow cone in the way that it's frozen, but the process of making it is very different. You don't start with a solid block of ice that you're shaving down. You start with a liquid that we put through a machine that creates the solid. So in that way, it's different. We also serve frozen custard, which when people think of custard, a lot of times they're like, well, wait, is it just like a gel? Like, because I
interesting.
think they think a custard that they get in a ramekin.
Yeah.
Yeah, they aren't thinking like it's like an ice cream.
Yeah.
So it is.
It's like a
just
really rich ice
yeah,
cream.
rich,
Yeah.
a little bit more dense. it's usually made at a lower speed, so there's not as much air pumped into that product.
Okay.
So it's usually a lot creamier. And I always tell people, like, it's healthier because it has more protein in it.
Let's go with that. I like it.
We're going to do our... We're going to get our vegetables, our fruit, and our protein in our dessert.
There you go.
I love it.
You might as well.
Yeah.
So what inspired you to start this? How did this, like, if we went back in time,
Okay.
how did this happen?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I've always been either an entrepreneur-driven or business-driven type person. Even in high school, that was something that I was very interested in. And as I got married and started having kids, I that was always in the back of my mind. Like I wanted something. I wanted to work. I wanted to contribute to either the community or to my family. That was really something that was important to me. And I kind of tried my hand at a couple of things. I realized that MLM wasn't for me. Sales in that way was very uncomfortable for me. And it's hard to look at everyone around you as a potential sell. And that just didn't resonate with who I am.
Yeah, you didn't want to lose your friends and family. I get it.
No. And it was very uncomfortable, but I did try it. And I had to have that experience to realize, oh, that didn't work for me. So as my kids were growing and my youngest was going to school, I still had in the back of my mind, like, this is a good time for me, but what does it look like? Like, what do I want to do? Do I want to go back to school? Do I want to, I really had always wanted to go to law school, but there aren't any law schools nearby. So I thought, well, either I put that on the back burner and come up with a different goal or idea, or, I look at opportunities around me. And Karrie Annes had actually been created by a college student at BYU, Idaho. He, for part of his graduation requirements, he had to create a business and run that business. And he had served an LDS mission back east and had become familiar with the water ice and thought, there's nothing like that around here. Let's bring it out here and see how it goes. So we had just become acquainted with him. He had parked his little yellow trailer, and when I say little, I mean it was little, it was dingy, it was like second, third, fourth hand trailer that he had
like the
bought.
Size of this table.
Yeah, because he was a student and he had this idea and this concept, and he had like an idea of how to execute it, and which was brilliant. This kid just
So who is this kid? Who is this person? How did you get to know him?
Yeah. Well, his name is Johnny Keeley, and he had parked his trailer around the corner from our house. And it was just that, like, I saw it, and it's bright yellow. Like, you can't really miss it. And I thought, I'm going to stop and try it. And the product I loved. I fell in love with it right away. And I actually really liked him. His personality, what he was all about. There was something that I was drawn to in him as an entrepreneur that I really liked. And so he ran it for a couple of seasons and was getting ready to graduate. And we, at that point, we had been there like, I don't even want to tell you how many times, like
just getting your protein,
hundreds.
right?
I was every night. I'm
protein.
like, I need to meet that macro count. I got to get my protein in, and I don't think I had enough fruits, so go to the trailer. So we just became acquainted with him, and I asked him, what are you going to do when you graduate? And at that point, it's like, I don't know. I might try to have somebody run it from here. He was going to be moving to Boise. That's where his future was located. And a
girl, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, his wife's name was Karrie Annes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's where the name came from.
I love it.
How interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so they were relocating. I just said, listen, if you are interested in selling it, at first I think he was kind of like, well, we're just going to shut it down.
Yeah.
It was just for a project. It was fun while I was here. It's not making great money. It fulfilled a requirement, and I lived off of what it made, but but it's not, it's not like this valuable asset.
He didn't see it as like
No.
long-term play at all.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. So I think he was a little surprised when I said, well, you know what? Like, what? Just don't shut it down. Like, I'd be interested in buying it. And my husband too, like he fell in love with it right away. And so same, I think when I wasn't talking to him about it, my husband was kind of talking to him about it. Like, we just love what this is. We love what it's all about and what we're looking for in either an investment or something to keep busy or something to teach our kids. Like, this would kind of fill all those.
Yeah.
Those needs, meet all those needs.
So how do you broach the topic? Like, how do you say, hey, I think I'd like to buy your trailer?
Yeah, just like that.
Just like that.
Yeah, no, it really was just like that.
Was he just shocked?
Yeah, well, like I said, I think it was kind of like, well, I don't know what that looks like. Like, what does that mean? And what is it worth? And, looking back on it, what we paid for quite a bit of blue sky, mostly because we really wanted it. Yeah. We really could see like there was so much potential here. And he had this concept, this idea, and maybe not everything was being executed 100%. He didn't have a lot of experience in actually, running businesses and creating systems and but
he's a kid.
But he had but he had this great concept. So yes, what we paid for it at the time, we're like, we are definitely overpaying for this, but we want it really bad.
So what did you value like just the physical assets at? Do you remember?
Like the amount?
Yeah, like the trailer and the machines are worth
like maybe
couple grand.
Well, maybe 10.
Okay. And then you paid well and above
yeah.
beyond. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, where we are now, looking back, it feels like we pay pennies.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, it's proven out very nicely for you.
It's been really fun.
So was there a negotiation process with this young man, or were you just like, oh, we'll give you this, and he was like, his eyes did this kind of a deal, and he said, sure. Oh, that sounds amazing.
When we first approached him, like I said, I think it took him off guard a little bit. Yeah. And in evaluating that first season that we had approached him, so he had ran it for 2 years. And then he was graduating, and we said, well, we really would be interested in buying from you. And I think because of that, I don't know if it was that reason alone that somebody else was interested, but then I think he had that thought process, well, maybe I should just hang on to it and have somebody run it here, even though I'm moving away. Maybe I should just hang on to it. And so he did that for another season.
Oh.
Yeah. And
playing hardball with you, huh?
Well, and I don't even know that it was that he was trying to play hardball.
Yeah.
I think it was more like, well, maybe I have something.
Yeah,
a little
sure.
bit. And like, I mean, this is just my assumptions. I'm thinking through what his thought process would have been, but
we'll have him on next week.
Yes, too. Yeah. Invite him over, and then he can say, "Oh, she's so crazy." No, but he had somebody run it, and it was at the end of that third season that manager was like, "Hey, this is a lot, and maybe you should reach out to him again." And so we did. And it was then he was ready. He was ready. And the capital the money that he made from the sale really helped propel him to his next venture, so I think it was a win-win all the way around.
Yeah. Interesting. So once he was ready, did he come to you and say, hey, here's what I would take for it? And you just said, you got it. Here's a check.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's pretty
Pretty
easy.
much. I mean, we had to do all the legal stuff that you would do, but but pretty much. And in fact, we just realized that his LinkedIn is like still attached to the business email, and like I'm going to set up my account and thinking I'll attach mine, and it's like, you already have an account, and I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe I set up a profile a couple years ago. So I go and I like reset the password, and now he's locked out of his LinkedIn account. So we still have some things 10 plus years later that,
why not?
Yeah, we're still attached a little bit. And seriously, I'd keep in touch with him. Neatest.
What's he doing now?
He's started a couple of other businesses, a landscaping business, and he's just that entrepreneurial minded. I think he's just a builder. He's a creator.
It's a special breed, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
And not everyone can do that.
Yeah.
And he's just
I think you have to be a little crazy, a bit of a maniac, a lot of ADD.
a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. Absolutely. A lot.
Oh, man. Okay, so you purchase the trailer.
Yeah.
And does the employee come with it, or like, what do you do next?
No. We have like a 4-hour training session where he's like, this is how you make it. Good luck. Really. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay. And
this.
You're just going now. You're leaving.
This.
Okay.
I got this. And really the first couple years were interesting because we started having this rapid growth almost immediately.
So how did that happen? Like,
Yeah.
what was that? Because what you described that he was running and what you are now are really different.
Yeah.
How did that happen? What was the break? What was the change?
You know, I think that there were some life experiences, job experiences that I had that set me up pretty well for understanding running employees and what that looked like, and maybe doing some marketing a little bit. But like, this is when Facebook and Instagram are just barely kind of becoming a thing.
Yeah.
So, so starting to put yourself out there on Instagram and Facebook and get your name out there, running promotions. But, you know, then the good thing for me, and one thing that I think was a huge benefit, is that we were local. So here we were trying to grow this business as a local family. And we were trying to integrate ourselves in the community. So I would donate to the schools and donate to the library district and try to put promotions out there to drive families and college students. Like that's our target market. Yeah. So we would do a lot of that, like pushing that. It was really important for me to hire the right people. The first 3 years, I kid you not, we probably would, because everything was inefficient in the fact that when we started rapidly growing, all of a sudden our equipment wouldn't keep up with the demand. So my husband would go to work, he would go to his day job, and then he would come home at night and help me either wash buckets or make product till like 3 a.m. so that we could keep up the next day, like for the first couple years. And my parents were huge supporters and partnered up with us and were helping too. So it was like myself and my mom, we would rotate working in the trailer and managing these young employees. And then we would like be normal people on the side. Yeah. But we just delve into that business and kind of breathed. Everything we did was Karrie Annes, and everything we thought about was Karrie Annes, and improving the system and making it more efficient. And
did that become draining? Was that fun? Like, as you're like, okay, well, all we're doing it till 3 a.m, we're making stuff. Were you ever like, why did we do this? Yeah. This is terrible.
Oh, I'm sure there were plenty of times those first couple of years, but we're so excited too. So that the burnout didn't really hit at that point. It was more, how are we going to survive? Because we're so tired and our kids are young at that time. Right. So how are we going to survive our day-to-day stuff when we're making Italian ice all night long? And, you know, it just evolved. The burnout happened, but years later. But the excitement is what kept us going. The excitement of people being excited about our brand and being excited about our product is what kept us like excited about it. So you would lose sleep and you would be making ice in your dreams, but you would also be so excited about like your sales increasing. And so you're like, oh, we can do this because sales are increasing.
So going back just a little bit, so you get the 4-hour training, he leaves.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, we gotta do this different because obviously it's not making enough money.
Right.
What are the like first things you did to move that business in a different direction?
Frontier Credit Union, we're changing the future of business with our Velocity Money Market account. You can receive unbeatable returns on tiered interest rates. We have rates up to 2.02% APY. Frontier Credit Union puts local businesses first because when you do better, we all do better. Federally insured by the NCUA.
We didn't pay ourselves.
Yeah, well, sure.
So we took all of the money that we made and just kept putting it back into the business to make things more efficient, to buy more efficient equipment, to also to show that our employees that they were valued. I mean, I put a lot of dollars into that because for me, that was such an important part of running a business, is that I had had jobs as a high schooler and as a young college student where I went and you just are grinding and grinding and grinding, and you do get that paycheck, but you rarely have someone either pat you on the back or throw something special in your paycheck. So for me, that was really important. I needed those employees to know that they were valued, they were important, and they were just as important as me running the business. If they felt happy at work, I noticed that they were happy to the customers.
Yeah.
Their customer service was better. If they enjoyed being with each other, then they treated the customers better.
Right.
And so we really just poured all the money back into the business. That is where it all went. For the first couple of years, it felt like a thankless job because you're not rewarding yourself, but seeing the sales increase, that felt like a reward.
Yeah.
So it's not a monetary reward, but more as you're like building this brand.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that Richard Branson quote where he says, if you take care of employees, they'll take care of customers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they'll take care of you. I mean, they'll be loyal. If you take care of them, they feel a sense of loyalty to you. And that's really fun. You know, people in probably our year 4 or 5, that's really when we started getting inquiries about growth. Like, will you franchise? And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're barely figuring this out. Like, we're barely surviving. Will you franchise? Will you franchise? And I'm like, that's not even something that was on my radar. Honestly, when people first started reaching out. And then I would have people ask, like, you almost seem to have this weird cult following at your business. And why are people standing in line for 40 minutes to get a treat? Like, and I'm like, at first I'm like, I have no idea. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
Or what are you doing to make them come back over and over? What are you putting in there? Like, what secrets are you putting in there? And I'm like, I don't know. I couldn't pinpoint it at first. But, you know, as we've grown, there have always been 5 things that I felt like were super important. And I've stuck by those 5 things. You have to have like a set of guiding
principles. Values that you follow. Yeah.
And those are things that I think just innately were in our family that we felt like, well, this is just what's important. It's important to have fun.
So is that principle 1?
Oh, it was important to have fun.
All right.
Absolutely.
I'm writing these down.
Yes,
okay,
please
here
do.
we go. Number 1.
So when you
have
start
fun.
your next business, it always needed to be important to have fun, because if you're doing something and you are not enjoying it, it just makes life miserable. So having fun was important. Providing a good product. Serving something that was good. We see so many brands that have a mediocre product. They might have amazing marketing that have propelled them, but their product is mediocre, so they can get by.
Who are you thinking about?
Oh,
Who's
well,
in that?
No one in particular.
Kidding. Okay, so good product. I love that. What's next? What's number 3?
It was that treating your employees well. That's always been super important to me. Then providing an experience. So I don't want people to come to the trailer and just have a good treat. I want them to leave feeling important. Whether that's our employees get to know them, those repeat customers, or make them feel special in some way, everyone should always leave having had a good experience.
That's really interesting. So how do you implement the experience?
from the moment you greet the customer. You don't ignore them when they approach the trailer. You don't look away as they make eye contact with you. Training your employees that the customer is so important. The customer is what makes the world go round, right? So if they're unsatisfied with something, it's not worth the fight. Just remake it.
Yeah.
If we make it wrong, like, we are human, we will give you the wrong flavor at some point, or the employee will read it wrong on the receipt paper, and so they put something in there, and even if it's like to the bottom of their gelati, we will, and they've eaten it all, and they come back and they're like, this actually isn't what I ordered.
We'll write that one down.
We will remake it. I know, maybe I'm not like doing a great job. My PR people would be like, don't tell people. Don't tell people.
No, I think it's good. Like, because what it tells me is you stand behind what you do.
Yeah.
And it also tells me that you care more about me as a customer than you do about the money that I provide to you.
Well, it has to be that.
Yeah.
It really does. It has to be that.
Yeah.
The experience, the product, if you don't leave feeling like that was awesome, they treated me well, I want to come back, they acknowledged my cool green eyes, or that I was wearing a Grateful Dead t-shirt, and not in a creepy way. I do always train them that. I'm like,
oh, you have great eyes.
Please don't be creepy. Like,
I love that
there's a
t-shirt on you.
There's a huge difference. There's a good way to not be a creep, and you
have to go through that.
The art of non-creepery that will be my first book.
I love that.
No, but providing a good experience, and then my last thing was providing an opportunity for my family. And this is something that my husband has felt was super important too, is that our children really had this experience, this firsthand experience, not just sitting in the classroom and hearing about economics and hearing about the supply and demand part of economics, or the supply chain and what that looks like, or what happens when your cost of goods go up. Not just hearing.
What school are your kids going to? I don't know if they're.
Well, they aren't learning that, and that's. Oh, should they be?
I don't know. Yeah.
No, but I mean, they just won't. There's so much you're taught that you just don't learn until you're actually doing it. So we felt like if we get them integrated into business at a young age, they're going to know those things. They're going to have a little bit of a leg up because they're going to understand what it means to balance your books, why it's important to know, what your cost of goods are, or what your revenues look like, and what's the difference between gross revenues and, just all the things that you need to know as a business owner, but sometimes you don't learn until you're actually running a business. So we felt like this was such a huge opportunity for them, and they've all worked in it.
I love that. Yeah. I have kids too, and just figuring out ways to prepare them for the world,
right,
can be challenging at times, because know that school isn't getting it done for them.
Right.
It's just not. It's not really built to.
Right.
And so you have to sort of provide them these opportunities to do things that they're not going to get naturally. And I love that you involve them. I think that's really a neat thing.
Right.
Okay, that's a pretty good list. Pretty solid list of stuff.
So those are our guiding principles. Mm-hmm. What are yours? Oh.
Yeah. I'm asking the questions. It's funny you talk about the experience. It's such an interesting thing that I don't know that is talked about enough. And I was talking about this the other day, actually, and we were talking about Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
And
yes.
Look, the food's fine.
Right.
There's nothing special about
Yes, there is.
What's special about it?
It's so good.
It's not. It's fine.
It's the sauces.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
It's fine. It's good. Is it like the best thing out? No, but you know that you're going to get a cool experience when you go.
Absolutely.
What's the word that they say? My pleasure.
Yes.
It's our pleasure.
It's our pleasure. Yeah. And it's such a little thing. And then when you have a bad experience there, here's what's really, really interesting is you walk away after a bad experience and you say, that's not like Chick-fil-A.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But you don't write them off.
No, because
No.
you're like, that's not Chick-fil-A. I just had a weird experience this time.
Because you've
right?
had enough good experiences there that you will afford them that little bit of like grace in the fact that they just had a bad day.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to tell you this one. So there's a place, a burger place in Amarillo, Texas called Blue Sky. And it's like my favorite place in Amarillo.
Which means they pay too much for the business.
Maybe, yeah. But and this happened the very first time I went there. I walked in and I go up to the like little cashier, and the gal looks up at me and she goes, "Oh my gosh, you're so handsome." And I was like, "Oh, I feel so great right now. This burger tastes amazing." And it was like just this little thing, and she wasn't weird about it or anything. She was just like very kind and complimentary. And I was like, I'm going to go back there as often as possible because I felt good going, you know. That's such an important thing that I think gets missed. People are like, well, it's about if we get the product right, it'll work. And there's some of that for sure. But people miss what is the whole experience that people are having with you.
Right. And being treated right, I think that's number one.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. Because you're willing to be forgiving of that business if you have a great experience with them.
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I want to go back real quickly. How long did you operate out of that yellow trailer?
The initial one?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I think we made
Do you still have it?
Yeah,
Is
we
it-
do.
That's
we
cool.
do. We operated out of it. Well, okay. I told you we put the money all back into it. So we operated out of that one probably for another 2 seasons. And then we had made enough that we could go and buy a new trailer and all new equipment. And so at that point in time, I had a sibling who was attending school in Logan at Utah State University in Logan. And he said, hey, if you bring the trailer down here, like we'll run it.
Oh.
So a lot of this business has probably been non-traditional in terms of growth. It wasn't like I had this growth plan, which is totally against everything that every college professor will ever tell you, or anyone, any business manager, any consultant will tell you should have this game plan. But that wasn't really it. Because our priorities weren't making all the money. It was, this is an investment. Someday it will pay back. But the opportunities that we were going to provide our family and other kids within the community, those were the most important kind of like in the beginning. And it was probably more so I like wouldn't drive my husband crazy because I needed something to do. So there, you know, we started, we sent that trailer down to Logan. We let that be like our starting trailer because you don't need this huge trailer when you're first starting out. So we bought a new one for here, sent that one down there, started growing the business down there. And then once that one got to where it couldn't sustain the growth, we had to buy another big trailer. And then I had an employee approach me that had previously worked for me that was going to school in Pocatello and said, hey, if you bring a trailer down here, then I'll run it. And I'm like, okay, why not? Like, let's give it a go. So then we sent that starting trailer down to Pocatello. So it's kind of like evolved. It's sitting out in front of our warehouse now. It's not being used currently at this moment. It's like a relic at this point. I don't know. It could be used for events, but I think we're done with the starting trailer.
That's probably
it's
okay.
about it needs to retire.
So how many locations do you have now?
Okay. Well, we have 3 locations that I have been running. I just sold Logan location as our first franchise location. So now I'm running Pocatello and Rexburg. I have a new owner in Logan.
Yeah.
And then we opened a franchise location in Boise and a franchise location in Provo and a franchise location in Harriman, Utah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So is that the model from this point on, is let's franchise it out?
So yeah. And like I said before, that wasn't initially my goal.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure it became a goal until we started getting inundated with inquiries, and then people started getting mad, like, why won't you just franchise? Why won't you let us have this opportunity? You know, it kind of.
My goodness.
No, oh, you think?
What's wrong with people?
I'll forward you the email.
Are you like, oh, I definitely want to franchise to you now?
But they loved it so much
Uh-huh.
that, and people, I had people reaching out at the end of every season. The same people would reach out year after year after year, and I'm like, well, that's not really the direction we're heading. I'm not ready for that, and I just wasn't. I wasn't ready. I still felt like. This whole time, it's been this like growth and learning experience, and learning how to better treat our customers, learning how to better treat our employees, learning how to refine our operations, learning how to be more efficient. And so franchising really wasn't on my radar at all. It just became almost like a customer-driven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was just demand for it.
It was. That really was it.
How did you make the decision to finally do it?
To actually do it.
Yeah.
It was that angry email. No, I'm not kidding. It was that, like, why won't you do this? Like, this could provide opportunities for other people, and you have such a great thing. Like, why won't you just do it? And I'm like, oh, well, I guess I could. Like, why not? You know, and when people think of franchise, it's a long-term game. If you're going into being a franchisor thinking that it is a get-rich-quick scheme, or like you're going to make so much money in the first couple years, you're not in it for you're not realistic about what actually a franchise is. If it was all about the money, it would be smarter for me to just do corporate locations.
Yeah.
Because that's where you make the money. Franchising is like, eventually you'll feel like you're successful if you build it right. But it's going to take some time, because your success depends on their success.
Yeah.
And it's like a whole new business. It's like, I know how to run the Karrie Annes business, but now I'm starting a business of...
It's a whole separate business.
It's totally different. Yeah. And it really was the interest that drove the desire to, okay, well, you know what this has done for our family, it can do for other families. This would be a great lifestyle or supplemental income. It may not be like your legacy type franchise, but there is opportunity for that, where you could buy multiple units and you can grow it and pass it along to your kids. Sure. There is opportunities for that. But for most people, it's going to be a great supplemental income or a great fun seasonal little lifestyle business. So that's really what drove why we decided to franchise.
Yeah.
This last season was our first, we called it our test season, mostly because I just didn't want to open everything up to franchisees until I felt confident that we had all the systems in place and that I was setting them up for success. And so we chose specific people that we felt like would either challenge us or would be great owners. And like I said, I like to do things backwards and non-traditionally. I mean, some might be challenging for you in ways that you're like, okay, I'm glad that I had this experience, because now I know how to deal with it in X, Y, and Z. Like, the challenging people are not the worst ones, because they teach you and they force you to figure things out that if you had all easy people, then how are you going to figure out the hard stuff? Or if they already know how to do all the things, then how are you going to have it prepared for the next people down the road who maybe aren't right there? You just don't want to get like slapped in the face with this, like, you weren't really ready 5 years down the road because you haven't figured these things out yet. And you don't want to be there as a franchisor.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so you mentioned this about the seasonal nature of the business. You sell like a cold treat in very cold winter areas.
Yeah.
You know, Idaho, Utah.
Yeah.
How does that work? So you go to like September and you're like, we're done for the year, you guys, and
Pretty much.
we'll open again in April or whatever it is.
Pretty much. That's it. We open May. May 1st is what we usually shoot for. Stay open until the end of September.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of been our niche.
Mm-hmm. Have you had any interest of like going to like New Mexico, Arizona,
Actually,
Texas?
yeah, a ton. Because those warmer climates, they could stay open longer.
You'd be open 10 months of the year.
Yeah. And I honestly, if I am attributing our success to like one thing, I think the seasonality has a lot to do with it. There's something about only being able to get it for a certain amount of months out of the year that people like come more. And that's also why we rotate our
Scarcity.
flavors. Yeah, we rotate our flavors weekly, because if you liked the one last week, like, guess what? You're really going to like the one next week, and you're going to need to come and try it, and you need to try it with all the things and all the flavors and all the combinations. So the seasonality really hasn't hurt us. I think it's driven the customers to come and to hit it harder, because there's a limited amount of time where you can get it.
Yeah.
We'll see that even this last week that we're in business. We'll have people that are like, oh, I got to stock up and I got to store up, and they'll bring their like tubs. And I'm like, well, we actually sell tubs, so you don't have to bring yours from home, but thank you.
I can buy a tub?
You can.
I didn't know.
Dang.
Yes, you can. And most people will last them the whole off season.
Wow.
I had no idea.
Learning new things.
How big is the tub?
It's like a 2.5 gallon.
Holy
Nice.
cow, that's a lot.
Yeah, so we gotta go get our tub before the season
you
ends.
might need a tub.
By the end of this week, I guess.
You might need a tub, yes.
Golly.
Yes.
Couple tubs,
Yeah.
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. Make your own Dragon Slayer.
That's right.
It's amazing.
So, okay, now I'm curious about the tubs. Does it come all like mixed and ready?
Yeah, yeah.
And I can just literally eat right out of that 5-gallon bucket.
Yeah, you totally can. Yeah. You got it.
I love it.
Yep. All day long
So what does the future look like?
for us.
Yeah.
The future looks like, I think it's exciting for us. I mean, I look forward to what we're growing and what we're building. The funnest part right now for me is I am learning so much. And from every potential franchisee, every customer, every employee that we have, we learn more. And learning what people like, what they don't like. You know, even responding to negative reviews, like that's another thing that people are afraid of, negative reviews. Negative reviews have been the best thing for our business because it teaches us what we need to improve. So for me, I can't look at those negative things that if we get them every once in a while.
I was about to say, what possibly could you be getting on negative
Yeah,
reviews?
I mean, like you mixed up my flavors and it hurt my feelings. But but even that, like sometimes you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what it isn't working because you're so in the middle of running it, and you can't maybe take a step back and look at how the customer would perceive certain things. So when you get that feedback, it's so valuable because you can't fix what you don't know is broken. So for us, I mean, focusing on positives, focusing on growth. We don't have this huge plan for taking over the world. Like it never was my intention to be a frozen treat mogul. That never was like the goal.
It's a great title, Frozen Treat Mogul. You have a business card with that on it?
I'm going to do it now. But that just never was like, this is my goal to be. It was all those 5 things that I listed. And so trying to teach the culture to your franchisees, you know, I think the best franchisees for us moving forward will be people who have had an experience with our brand, who understand the culture of what we're all about. And you come and something about like sitting outside under the tent, watching people in summer. Like, you don't want to be inside in the middle of summer eating your treat. Like, you want to be outside and you want to enjoy good music and you want to be, you know, hanging out with your friends, and kids will ride their bikes down to the trailer, which is so fun. So implementing that culture, making sure that the franchisees understand that culture, that we can take that everywhere we go, and that people are getting the same experience at every location. Like, those are our goals. As far as like a rapid growth, that's not my goal. My goal is to do a slow and steady, and to be calculated about how we grow and where we put our trailers, so that the franchisees can be profitable, so that they can be successful. I don't want them all on top of each other, especially for the first 5 to 10 years. You don't want people right next to each other competing when you have this whole country.
It's a lot of space
to go to. Yeah. So working through that growth, I think it's really promising and it's really exciting for us.
Yeah.
And our goals are just to create something that is uniform everywhere you go. And that, like I said, you're getting that same experience. And like you bring up Chick-fil-A. I mean, I go to Chick-fil-A in St. George. They are just as friendly in St. George as they are in Idaho Falls, as they are in Logan, Utah. Like, those, it is uniform. You know, you're getting that great experience. There's something when you hear like, oh, I really like the taco time in Rexburg, but I don't like the taco time in everywhere else. Like, there's something wrong there.
Yeah.
And there's something behind that the franchisor might not be doing correctly. If the brand and the culture isn't uniform everywhere you go. So those are our goals, like create something sustainable for other families and provide a great experience at every location.
Yeah, that's great. It's such a different take on, like, what does the future look like?
I know, I told you,
that
I'm
most
quite
people,
non-traditional.
Well, yeah, it's kind of refreshing, honestly, because you keep following back to those kind of values that you have that you explained earlier. And I remember somebody telling me one time, they're like, if you do it for the money, you're going to get so tired of it.
It's true.
Like, you won't like it at all if that's why you're doing it. And you're very clearly not doing it at least exclusively for the money. You have this, you know, set of values that guide even your future. Right. It would be easy right now to be like, all right, how do we milk this baby? Right. It's going.
Well, if those franchises or franchisors that do it that way, usually there is no longevity.
Yeah.
They just don't last very long. And why open your brand up to fail? Like,
to people who don't really care about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do it?
Yeah. It's a good point.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
So what advice would you give to the young entrepreneur, like going back on your 10-ish years of experience doing this? What advice would you give somebody that's following in your footsteps?
I would say figure out what your guiding principles are. Definitely. I mean, I would start there. What are you going to stand by? Are you going to be the person that's hiding your money from the government, or are you going to pay all your taxes? Are you?
Let's hide it. Let's hide it all. Yeah.
Are you going to be honest with your employees when you're paying them, or are you going to hide? You know, there are so many things that you can do that are dishonest that seem super easy that you could get away with, but setting your standards right from the beginning, like, I will never do this, and sticking by that, then you won't compromise when you get down the road and maybe you are making money, or maybe you can expand your business and you're looking at it as, do I expand and take all their money and then, you know, let them, like, you figure it out. You just, if you can stick by those guiding principles right from the start, I think that is the best place to start, and really look at what you are doing this for. So, like I said, for us, I remember thinking, like, this will probably be like one of those fun snow shacks. Like, and at the end of the summer, if we can make $5,000, I'll put $1,000 in each of my children's like bank account or their student, student
college fund or whatever.
Fund.
Yeah.
And I'll feel so excited that I've contributed something to my family, or that really was like how I looked at it at first. As it evolved and grew, you do set different goals, but I've always stood by those things. And I think that it's what's made us successful. Same with my husband, like we've just stuck by the things that were important to us, and it's propelled us. Advice I would give is don't worry about competition. Competition is good. The first couple years that we had people set up gelati stands around us, I remember like being panicked. Like there are none of these in anywhere within like 300 miles, yet all of a sudden there's like 3 within 5.
Yeah.
After we had already kind of established ourselves. And I remember being concerned, and I would lose a little sleep. Like, who does that? Like, why would you try to create something the same as something we already have right next door to us? Like, why wouldn't you look at an idea and say, I should take this somewhere else. Maybe I can make it successful there. So it used to kind of worry me. But the more I worried, the less emphasis I was putting in improving my business. And so I really had to stop worrying about competition and start worrying about just doing the best thing we can. Standing by those things the best that we can, making the best product, making the best improvements. And once I focused on that and stopped worrying about everyone else, I felt much happier as a business owner. And really those businesses didn't affect us. They didn't affect our bottom line. They didn't affect, and some of them have come and gone. And so competition really is good. It just makes you buckle down and figure out what's working, what's not working. How can we make it better? So having core principles, not worrying about competition, not letting money be the most important thing, because you start to sacrifice your values when money becomes more important.
Right.
And we've seen, history has shown money will sink people so fast, and the need to be the top dog and make it all. Some people will compromise those standards or those goals. Those are probably and don't be afraid. Maybe that's the last one. Don't be afraid to try. If you have a great idea, do it. Maybe don't copycat someone else's idea, because, the market will get saturated with ideas. And I don't know what it is about sometimes these areas that we live in, like you have a million soda shops and a million cookie shops. And you're like, at some point the market is going to be saturated, where when you had this novelty item that was doing really well, now all of a sudden you're like watering it down. So if you see a good idea, take it somewhere else and grow it somewhere else.
Sure.
But if you have your own ideas, just go for it. And people will say, well, how do I just go for it? I have no experience. You learn as you go. Yeah. And there will be the coolest people along the way that will help you and that will mentor you and that will give you guidance and direction. Any successful person is going to be willing to say, here, let me give you some suggestions, or let me, kind of walk you through a couple of things. Now, they may not tell you how they run their business in entirety or in detail, but they are always willing to hold your hand a little bit to guide you. And we've done that for multiple businesses. And it's very rewarding to watch those businesses grow and thrive. But don't be afraid. You will figure it out as you go. And you will make mistakes, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Will you talk a little bit more about
mentors and like finding those, asking somebody like what resources have worked for you?
Right. It can be really awkward to approach people and say, you know, there's some things that I have questions about. I'm just not quite sure how to do this. One that has been really great for me that is another business that is located within proximity of mine is Pizza Pie Cafe.
Yeah.
That brand, Matt and Jane Smith, they have been great resources for, you know, I reach out and they franchise their business. And so when I was getting ready to franchise mine, I'm like, who do I go to or who do I look for? I wasn't asking them for their operations manual or to look at their FDDs. It was more like, where do I start? And they gave me so much information. And then as I'm trying to map territories, I'm like, how do people do this? Like, how do you map a territory? And then so I call Matt Smith and he's like, oh, there's a ton of, you know, different resources online and companies that have created mapping systems just for franchisees. Like, here's a couple names. So people like them that are thriving in their industry, I've reached out to. You know, there's some that have built businesses locally that you just network and rub shoulders with, and you connect with those people, and always being willing to help other people. I feel like, because that's been important to me, I haven't ever had anyone come back at me like when I've needed help that's been like, no.
Yeah.
People are really fairly generous with their knowledge. Podcasts are huge. I've listened to a lot of franchising podcasts, which you meet with this attorney and your attorneys are great, but a lot of times your time is limited and they're helping you create this like 100+ page franchise disclosure documents. And then you get done with that and you're like, I still am not sure what this is all about. Like, so filling in the gaps of what your knowledge is now versus what you need to understand to be able to sell your franchise. Podcasts have been huge for that. I actually am so grateful for this, you know, source of media, and that it's kind of grown and developed, and that people are putting their time into creating podcasts because that's where the learning is. So podcasts are huge. Bankers, amazing resources. They can get you in touch with the neatest people. And we have a resource, a banker that we've worked with since day one, that has provided us with so many contacts of people that, you know, he has a good relationship with. And based on his relationship, all of a sudden they're willing to talk to you because of their relationship. So, you know, bankers are great, another great resource. Accountants are a great resource. They also have access to people who they know are successful and can help guide. So working with our accountant has been amazing. And the advice that I've gotten from them has been invaluable. Like, you're paying them every month, and I'm like, what I am getting from them is so much more than I've ever paid. I find if you treat people well, that they'll be endeared to you and they're willing to help you. And so for young entrepreneurs, if you come out all hot and aggressive, there's no, like, that's the quickest way to rub people wrong and for them to not want to help you. Or if you come at them with like, I want to set up your same business in my town. How do I do that? Can you walk me through that? Like, they're going to probably hang up the phone or...
It's a weird way to approach someone.
It is. And if I could tell you how many times I've been approached in exactly that way, you would laugh. I wish I had a nickel for every time. But, you know, just coming to people are generous. Like, they're just great. There's just amazing people out there.
I think most people are, and particularly people who are entrepreneurs. Their community is rather small.
Right.
And so because it's small, they want to see people come into it. They want to see people be successful.
Right.
Yeah, everyone that I've talked to is so generous and kind, and you talk about bankers. I know our commercial team and treasury team. They work with businesses all day long, every single day, and they have like this stable of really interesting people that provide resources all to each other. I think it gets a little lonely actually as an entrepreneur, and you only have so many people that you can like commiserate with and talk with, and
so when you
share
get
stories
there,
with.
When you get there, then you start going to conventions.
Right. Yeah.
So, or you join a group of people that are either like-minded or are in your same industry.
Yep.
So like I'm a part of a ice cream group. So I go.
How does one get into one of those?
Yeah. So it's just like this nice little membership fee, but it's focused on ice cream people helping ice cream people. Like that is their motto.
Right.
And so
is that literally it? Ice cream
is.
people helping ice cream
people. Yeah.
Cool.
It's the North American Ice Cream Retailers Association.
That's so
It is amazing.
awesome.
So you go to these conventions and they have set up these modules or speakers, so you can attend all these classes where they're talking about all the things that have to do with your industry, and what's new and what's happening and what are the upcoming trends and how to scale your business and how, like, all the things that you would want to know about ice cream, or where do your risks lie, what do you need to be aware of, what is important in terms of food safety. So I attend these things and I always come back having learned so much. And those, you would think people in the same industry would be kind of tight-lipped about their industry secrets. They're not. It's the weirdest thing. I went thinking like they're going to just like disclose minimal information. And so no, people are like, here's where I get this, and here's how I do this, and let me show you how to do this. And so I've created great friendships through that people that I talk to weekly, some of them, about, growth and development and new flavors and flavor ideas. Working, I'm attending actually tomorrow through the Savory Group. They're hosting a restaurantology summit. Yeah, and they do venture capital and private
equity.
Yeah, and so and they're behind the growth of so many companies. Swig is one that is their big, a big brand of theirs. That they have so much knowledge as well. So I'll attend this tomorrow, and I'll come back with having rubbed shoulders and met all these new people, and maybe even people that are talking about how to use like AI and bots in your business and what that can do for you, and how you can, reduce maybe costs and staffing by implementing computers.
Yeah.
And so those are the places where, you can get great resources and you can meet great people. I love conventions. They're so fun. But ice cream convention, when you're tasting like 100 flavors.
How much ice cream is being consumed at one of these?
A ton. Well, and everyone.
What's the rate of diabetes at one of these?
Don't even know. But people will come. Like they'll there's a competition, an ice cream tasting competition, right? So they'll bring their best flavors or their best new flavors, and they'll line them up on a table, and everyone grabs like a little mini spoon, and you don't double dip, like you have a mini spoon for each. And you just take a little scoop and you taste them, and then you get to vote at the end, which is your favorite.
Are you ever like, God, I wish I would have come up with that first?
No. It's great for like creativity, I feel like, because you take this idea, and then most of the time I taste them and I'm like, oh my gosh, that would taste so good with this. Or I would love to add this type of cookie or this extra flavor. So most of the time I leave with other ideas, not so much like I wish that was my idea. Yeah, I do. Well, and we work with a local dairy here who provides top quality products, which has been so amazing. So that partnership for us, they're always willing. If I call them and I say, I need a little help trying, I would like to try this flavor. Like, what do you guys think? And could you help me create that? And they're great. They're always willing to, this is what we're good at. So, there's just so much. There's so many people that are so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know people like to think that they aren't going to share their secrets. They do. Like, they want to see people be successful. They want your success.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah. Yeah. Bailey, what did I miss?
What's your recommendation for avoiding burnout or working through it when you do hit burnout?
Okay. So I did hit burnout probably about 2.5 years ago when I just, I worked in it 7 years at that point, and I'm like, oh man, how am I going to do this? We would run into maybe staffing issues, and you're having a hard time staffing for the whole season, because for me, a lot of my employees are high school kids.
Yeah, sure.
And so, and then they go back to school in August. Well, I still have like a month and a half left. And when they're in school, then what do I do? And finding employees is super hard. So staffing can be a big source of burnout for businesses. When the cost of goods shot up after COVID, that was scary. And so I think a combination of multiple things happening kind of just left me feeling overwhelmed. Like, here we have this business and it's been successful. Part of what I feel like we've thrived on is that we have tried to keep our prices as low as possible, because for us, we wanted something that people could bring their families to and feel like they could leave without, that was like a dinner. Like, I don't want them to pay what they paid for my treats. They felt like they just had a meal or they just paid for a meal. So for me, it's always been more volume. I'll keep my costs and my prices as low as possible, and let's just pray that people keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. So, but when cost of goods shot up, all of a sudden I was like left with this predicament of, do I take a hit and not increase my prices? Do I increase my prices at the rate of inflation? So some of my cost of goods went up like 30-35%. So do I raise my prices 30-35%? It just became so overwhelming. And I feel like that overwhelming part of what was going on made me put more time into it. And then the more time I put into it, the less time I was spending with my family. And the more I became preoccupied, and my mind, everything was put into like stressing and worrying about the business and worrying about what do I do about cost of goods and worrying about employee staffing. And so I actually came to my husband and I was like, I think I need to sell. Like, I'm so burnt out. And he's like, wait, whoa. I'm like, it's too much. It's too much for me. It's too much for me to do alone. Like, I'm getting so tired, and I'm tired of stressing. And I think our kids are suffering because I'm spending so much time preoccupied with the business. And I think our marriage is suffering because I'm spending so much time preoccupied. And I lost track of the things that were important to me. And it kind of became a really scary time because the longevity of the business, all of a sudden I'm like, well, it's worth something and somebody will want to come in, and I've gotten it ready to franchise. So somebody can just like swoop right in and they can take it and run with it, and I'll be able to move on. But then my husband's like, but then what are you going to do? And he didn't mean it in a way like, what are you going to do to like replace that? But it was like, well,
he knew you needed it though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but then what would you do? Like, it's become such a big part of your life and your identity. And so, we had to take a step back and go on vacation. And it was very much like, I don't want he would say to me, I don't want you to think about the business. I want you to try not, like, don't answer the phone calls. Just try to breathe and refocus and recenter yourself and remember those things that were important to you. And I really kind of had lost sight of it a little bit. I had forgotten why it was important to me. I had forgotten the value that it was bringing to all these young kids that I was meeting that, you know, some of them like don't even know how to clean their toilets at home, but you're trusting them to scoop ice cream and do a good job at it.
And like the from toilet to scooping my ice cream.
Yeah, that probably wasn't a
that
great
wasn't my favorite.
That probably wasn't a great transition. Yeah, no, that was probably really poorly worded.
Your point is well taken, though.
Okay, well, you won't forget it at least. So, I mean, things that like some of these kids, you're their first job.
Yeah.
You're their first experience with an employer.
Yep.
And if they have a good one, then someday when they create their businesses, like those things are going to be important to them too. And I've had some kids that have been with me like since they turned 15.
Wow.
And I have one kid managing now that started first job, and he's now moving into the corporate side of our business. And he's in college, but you know, it's just something that he's so good at. And he's just good with the employees. He's good with the staff. He's good at running and managing people. Yeah. And so I had to recenter, and I had to reevaluate, and I had to put myself in check. You know, sometimes we put ourselves in timeout. Like we have to put ourselves in check as well, and figure out what is important. My family is most important to me. And if the business shut down tomorrow, if my family fell apart, where would I be?
Yeah. Like, what would have been the point?
Yeah, there's none. So definitely vacationing or taking time off, and it's something I need to be better about. Some of us are just wired as workaholics a little bit. I have people that are like, well, what are your hobbies? And I'm like, what are hobbies? What do you mean? Like, what hobby? Who has time for hobbies? Who has time for hobbies? I'm raising kids, and I'm trying to run a business.
Those are your hobbies.
Yeah. But they're like, people are like, no, this is not a fun hobby. It doesn't sound like very fun. I mean, you can find fun in everything, but that is something I need to be better about is taking time for myself, taking time with my family outside of the business.
Yeah.
Spending valuable time too, not just time, but making that time count.
I know I can get really obsessive about work and work too much. And so one of the things I've realized is I have to be super intentional about spending time with my family. I will not take a vacation all year if like that is allowed to do, right? And so my wife is really, really good about being like, you need to take some time. You need to, you know. And so I think that's just one of those things that you have to figure out how to balance appropriately. Right. And it can be really, really challenging, especially if you like what you do. Right. I actually like what I do.
Right.
And so to take time away from it sometimes doesn't even quite feel like a break, but my family needs it.
Right.
Just as much as I probably do, maybe more.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and as a mom too, you know, I don't get to, I shouldn't say get, but I don't go to work, and dads have like a different role in the fact that they can go to work and they usually know that their spouse is going to take care of the home and take care of the kids and make sure that they're all fed and that they're taken care of and that their needs are being met. When I go to work, I still have to worry about the business, and then I'm also worrying about are the kids' needs being met. And so it seems to compile a little bit. And if you don't take that time for yourself, I think you can burn out easy. I think that's why you see a lot of people like do something for a couple of years and then they move on, especially women. Like they'll have a career for a couple of years and then they like move on to another career and move, because the burnout rate is so high.
At Frontier Credit Union, we're changing the future of business with our Velocity Money Market account. You can receive unbeatable returns on tiered interest rates. We have rates up to 2.02% APY. Frontier Credit Union puts local businesses first because when you do better, we all do better. Federally insured by the NCUA.
What's your message to the world?
It's the big one.
You know, when you leave this world, I think you want to have left leaving a mark that was positive. So regardless of how you're doing that, whether it's being a coach or being a business owner or being a parent or being a friend, like, you want to leave a positive impact on other people's lives, not a negative. And I think the people that I know that are the most successful are those ones, those people who you look to in a positive light, not the person that was the multimillionaire, but that like clawed their way to the top and cut the knees of their competitor, like cut them at the knee. Like those aren't the people that I respect and look up to. It's the people who along the way made friendships, along the way rubbed shoulders with good people, who had a positive impact on their employees or on their brand. Like their brand is filled with love. Like that's such a big deal to me, that if I can leave this world having done that and having left it a little bit better, then I will have been a successful person. So that's really my goal. And that's my message to the world. Eat a gelati and be kind to others.
There you go.
I love it.
You know, it's interesting when you talk about your message about leaving a positive mark on the world. I couldn't help but think about this guy that I worked for years ago. And I was early in my career. He was the opposite of what you are describing. He was the cutthroat, aggressive, mean entrepreneur who was, by all rights, very successful.
Yeah.
And while you were talking about that, I was just thinking, I was like, I think at its height, we had like 1,500 employees or something like that. And he influenced and impacted all of those people in some negative ways.
Yeah.
And like me personally, when I left that role, and I spent like 7 years there, like one of my first like real jobs. So it was very formative for me. And I left and I was like, oh, I have to like unlearn the last 7 years and be something different, because I remember thinking, like coming home from work one day and being like, I don't want to be like that. And today, and I'm friends with a lot of those former coworkers, but today none of us speak highly of that guy. I mean, we all say he was brilliant, but I never want to see him again.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And yeah, it's such a sad thing, because he could have done something really, really different, and he could have helped thousands of people instead of like,
and that's
creating such hardship.
Culture he was creating.
Yeah, that's right.
It wasn't a positive culture.
It was not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and you never know like what people will take away from their experience with you. You just hope that it's positive.
Yeah.
And you hope that you did right by them and that you were always honest and you stood by your values.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's the most important thing. If you make money along the way, that's great. But if you've left it where people don't like you, like what's the point? Like what legacy are you actually leaving?
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
And
what are you teaching your kids? And then what are you teaching those people? Like, how many of those people think that they have to be that way to be successful now?
Yeah. I mean, it was something I had to figure out and be like, that's not what I need to be. But how many people didn't figure that out? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Too many, probably.
Yeah.
It was such it's interesting because the bad businesses that you interact with, you learn just as much from as the good ones, right? Because you learn like, that's not it, right? That is not what I want to be like. And And so in a lot of ways, I'm grateful for that experience. I learned so much through that experience. I learned how to grapple with myself, like how to say, this is what I am, but this is not what I want to be.
Right.
And how to change. And those are all like highly valuable and useful things.
Right.
But it was hard.
Yeah.
And I feel, look, he's doing just fine, right? I don't know what he's doing, but, he's probably on one of his many boats doing whatever. But I'm sad for him too.
Yeah.
Right. I'm real sad for him.
And I think who wants to live a lonely life as well?
Sure.
And or wondering like why people like you, or like are they just wanting to be around you because of your money, or do you have true friends? Like, have you created healthy, deep relationships with other people?
Yeah.
Some people don't know how to do that. They don't know how to have good friendships and be successful at the same time.
True.
But it can be done. It can be done.
And then I think in contrast about like my high school janitor, who was always laughing and smiling and kind. And, he didn't make millions over the course of his career, I'm sure. But we all speak so glowingly about him. Like he left a really positive, important mark. And I think sometimes we use money as the scorecard.
It's not,
And it's a bad way to measure, right?
It really is.
Yeah.
True.
No, it really is. As a business, you should always be looking for ways to give back.
Yeah.
And to do more. And we were talking about individually, use like what you asked what my message was. Like that's an individual message, but like as a business, giving back is important as well. Realizing that you wouldn't be where you are without that community support, it makes it easy for me to give back to my community. Or, this last August, the beginning of August, we attended the county fair and were able to buy an animal from one of those.
Oh, one of the 4-H kids.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
we do that stuff too. Yeah.
So fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
That experience is so fun. Seeing all those local business owners there bidding on animals that you're like, they're not even going to eat that animal.
Right.
Like, who wants a lamb?
Yeah.
He does.
Okay, I should have.
Okay, well, yeah. It's quite nice if you know how to cook it.
Okay,
you know?
well, if you know how to cook it right. But
It is interesting to watch a chicken go for $3,000.
It's
though.
exactly.
insane, yeah.
Like there were so many people there that were just so generous with their money for these young kids, and like to me that's so valuable. It's valuable for those kids to see that there's these business owners out there who are successful that are willing to give back or that see value in hard work. I'll tell you one story about that was so touching to me. We were at the county fair. There was a young girl showing her animal, and they were getting ready to auction off the animal, and
She's just crying.
oh, they're all crying because by then they're like exhausted, those poor kids, and they're young, and
They've developed like relationships with these animals.
right,
Yeah.
right, and there it came time for her to go, and the auctioneer started, and they were auctioning her hog off, and there was a gentleman there who's a very successful gentleman in the community, and he started bidding on her hog, and then all of a sudden there was another hand, on the other side of the stadium bidding, and kind of kept bidding, and it ends. They've definitely overpaid for the animal,
Of course. Yeah.
but and it ends up being this gentleman that is a wealthy gentleman that ended up being the highest bidder. But the girl looked over to try to figure out who the other bidder was, and it was her school bus driver.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And, they're just things like that. Maybe that was somebody who that money meant a lot to, but that kid also meant a lot to them. And I left that thinking like it's just not all about you. It's not all about money. It's about the difference that you can make in others' lives. And so if I can leave having made some money, great. But if I can really leave having my employees felt like I was positive or a positive person in their life, like I really will be happy. I'll be happy with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of good with money.
You can.
Yeah.
You can.
You just have to want to.
Yep, it's true. And even franchising moving forward, I mean, our goal, we will grow. This next season, we have plans for a couple more locations.
Oh, okay, where are they?
Well,
Where are they going to be?
it's top secret right now.
But it'll be our little secret. Nobody will hear about it but us.
We will announce them shortly. But
Give me a hint. Give me just one hint.
I mean, like,
Rhymes with.
well, we are actually looking for a location here in Idaho Falls
Ooh.
for next season
Oh.
That's exciting.
as a corporate location.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, so if you have any suggestions, like your parking lot would be perfect. No, but we do.
Would be perfect.
We have a trailer lined up, so we are looking for a spot here. Those franchisees, I'm actually interviewing right now, so still working through that process of, I know I have ideas of where I want to go. Twin Falls would be a great location. Another Boise location would be great. Boise is big enough to support multiple.
Oh, yeah. You probably put 10 there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and northern Utah, we're looking at some locations in northern Utah. I've had a ton of inquiries for St. George.
That feels like a good play there.
Totally.
It does. It
Yeah.
does. That feels like a win. So, yeah, we have plans for other locations. We're very fortunate in the fact that I haven't had to work with like a broker. I haven't had to go out and try to seek franchisees. We've had enough people organically come and
That's so neat.
which is, I feel so fortunate because my attorney even said, like, you don't know how rare this is. Like, most people are begging people to buy their franchise. And I'm like, I just can't get them to like be okay with me not being ready. Like when, when they were calling.
How dare you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How dare you not share this opportunity with the world? So I feel very lucky in that I have a plethora of handful of people that are just excited and ready and hoping that their number gets called. So, and hoping that they're the right fit. You got to make sure that you find the right fit. So we do have plans. We have plans for growth. Like I said, I don't necessarily need a rapid growth. I don't have this, like, I need to have so many units by this year, so that I can sell out. Like, for me, I don't have an end goal right now where I like totally want to be done. If it happens in a couple of years and a private equity comes in and we've created value, like I'm going to entertain every option.
It'd be crazy not to.
Right.
Yeah.
But if this becomes something that my children run, or that, I have just create this corporate family and we run it forever, like, I'm good with that too.
Yeah.
So growing at a healthy rate, making sure that I have support for the franchisees, making sure that we're still doing things and we're sticking true to our values along the way, like, that's what's important to me. So for growth, like, let's go, let's ride and let's roll, but let's do it right.
Yeah. Okay, and we can cut this part out, but so a private equity firm comes to you. What's your number?
Oh my gosh. I don't. It's hard. Like, most.
$10 million. I'll give you $10 million for it.
Yeah.
Done
for sure.
deal.
I think so, because you know what, $10 million that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
$10 million is
A lot of guacamole
for
there.
some people. That doesn't seem like a. For me, that seems like a huge amount. That's like I could buy a place in a warmer climate, so I could live here in the summer. I could go there in the winter.
My wife have been talking about that.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah.
So $10 million, and then you can reinvest, and
You'd never have to do anything
you
else
wouldn't.
if you wanted
So
to.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, I'm trying to think, what would I do if somebody offered to buy your place?
Yeah, what would you do
million.
if somebody?
If you were like, Steven, what should I do?
Yeah.
Obviously, I'd have to see your books, which I'm not going to do.
Yeah.
But I would say no. at 5.
Yeah.
I don't think I would say yes to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I might say no at 10.
Really?
It just depends how badly you want to keep working on it.
That's true.
That's really the question at
That
that
is true.
stage, because you could ride off into the sunset at 10, but do you want to is the real question.
Well, and I guess it depends on who those partners are. That
sure does.
I mean, or who that group is.
Yeah, and how much equity you retain as part of that deal and all that stuff matters, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because you could grow it to 10 million annually if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Right, like when you talk about the level of demand that you have to franchise it,
Right.
which is more of a long-term kind of slow growth. But if you could get, I think you could get 100 stores without that much trouble.
Right.
Right. And at that point, you're like, oh, 10 million doesn't sound that interesting.
It may
right?
not. Right now, it
Yeah.
sounds like a lot
Yeah.
to me because we're just new to that, to franchising and to seeing what that growth looks like. $10 million sounds like a whole lot of money.
It does, doesn't it?
It really sounds nice.
Yeah.
But
It just depends how badly you want to keep going with it.
Yeah.
Or if you want to try something different. I mean, you've put a decade into this thing.
Yeah.
Maybe you're like, maybe I want to do shoes next, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just making stuff
Yeah,
up. But
for sure.
yeah,
That's
you
for
never
sure.
know.
Maybe I want to be a sock designer.
Sure.
Or like,
Have you
yeah.
have you
Goldfish
kept,
breeder. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
Why not?
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
have you kept the same brand, or is the logo changed since you bought that?
Yeah, so we have evolved our logo. The name has always been the same. And, when we bought it, it's not like they had been in business long enough that I couldn't have changed the name. But
Yeah, they didn't have a ton of equity
they
in
didn't.
it. Yeah.
But for me, there was something about the fact that this guy had named it after his wife. To me, that was like, this is made by love. Like there was a lot behind.
It's a good story.
It is. Well, and there's a lot behind that. Like, I don't know that my husband would name any business after me. Like, the fact that that he did that, I'm like, that. First of all, that's the cutest thing.
It is
Yeah.
adorable.
Yeah. And so it just felt right to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
Our logo has evolved. The branding has evolved as we've learned more about branding and how important that is moving forward and for the longevity of a business. It has evolved. Even, getting things trademarked and all that stuff. Like, it's important to have something that you feel confident in, that you want to stand behind, that fits you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just fun, all of it. It really is, but it's evolving. Like, I still feel like we're evolving with what we're creating in terms of marketing. That's evolving. I think we've landed on something we feel good about as like, this is our core brand, colors and logo, that we've had that for quite a few years. Mm-hmm. But in terms of like what we put out there to the world, like, that's evolving still, and I'm open for it. I'm here for it all.
Have you considered moving into other lines of products that might be adjacent to what you're doing right now?
Like lollipops and chapstick?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could totally add those to our brand. I'm like going to call Poppy and Pout and be like, listen here.
Yeah.
We need some gelati flavored chapsticks. What does that look like? Let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
Genius.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. Not so much. I mean, co-branding, there's some opportunity for that out there. With us and with the modality that we're in, it just feels right to have one thing that we focus on, and we just try to do really well at it. We're not like a McDonald's, and we're not a Wendy's. Like, we don't offer a full menu of food. And that's never been my interest. We have one thing, and I just want to be really good at that one thing.
Yeah.
And I'm happy. I'm satisfied with that.
I think it's great.
So yeah, merch will evolve and we'll maybe co-brand and have some things that we offer. Mm-hmm. But in terms of like, will we start serving pretzels out of the Karrie Annes cart? No, probably not.
Yeah.
I think we've landed on where we feel comfortable and where we feel confident. I don't have the need to do that. So yes, no.
No, I think it's a good idea. One of the cardinal sins, particularly of like startup businesses, is trying to do too many things Get really, really good at the thing you do. Get world class at the thing you do. That's how you stand out.
Right.
So no, I think that makes sense.
Right. People have asked, like, would you add soda? That seems to be like a very typical, like, would you add soda? But then we're a soda shop.
Yeah, then you're just another nameless, faceless soda shop. Yeah.
So many.
There's a lot of them.
And I just don't want to water it down. Yeah. I like when people have their niche, and I like to let them have their niche. Like,
yeah.
I like my own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for being with us. And thank you for joining us on the DRGN SLYR Podcast by Frontier Credit Union. We'll see you next time.
Woo!